The question that involved tonight is again, I'm stepping out of the original announcement of the curriculum that we have announced. But for the sake of students, deeper understanding of Tantra, that quite possibly we could go over some of the basic principles, some basic understanding of Tantric discipline. It is necessary to have a broader picture. A broad picture in the sense that you have some way that you can relate with yourself, how apply it to Tantric discipline, or Tantric consciousness, whatever you like to call it. And we should be quite clear at this point. When we discuss Tantra, we are not purely talking in terms of vague spiritual progress in the naive, or quite possibly in the fashions of potential promises of ecumenical hope that we could jumble the Hinayana and the Mahayana and the Vajrayana together in a big lump. That whatever one is doing, everything's going to be okay. But we are discussing Tantra at this point. And we are talking extremely special, technically, spiritually, personally, extremely special and real experience that the uniqueness of the Tantric tradition has to offer to sentient beings, to humanity, whatever. That one of the point is that how to relate our own existence, our own daily situations to Tantric type, consciousness level. And Tantra has been regarded as one of the most advanced and sharp and extraordinary perceptions that had developed by great Mahasiddhas of the past, of Tantric masters, and has been handed down generation to generation as known as the air-whispering secret language. And this language does not necessarily mean to say that you are learning a new language, as if that your parents speak English. So therefore, when you talk to your children, you speak Chinese, or your children speak English, so therefore parents will speak Yiddish. But we are talking in terms of actuality that there is obvious Tantric culture that is developed in India, which is the peak of Buddhism at all. And there is such thing as Tantric revolution that took place, and we are a descendant of that we are discussing tonight. This particular phenomena, if you like to call it, this particular experience, which is a unique, unusual, eccentric, strange, powerful, magical, outrageous, mind-blowing, and at the same time extremely simple. And we are talking about Tantra, and we are bringing Tantric Buddhism into this particular continent. And it seems that it is possible to say quite safely that in any universities, any institutions that exist who are devoted to study of Buddhist thought, or popularly it is known as a Buddhologist, or whatever, the Department of Buddhologyism, whatever, haven't touched such particular experience yet. So in this particular establishment, this particular institution, that this studies of tantric disciplines, tantric consciousness, tantric awareness is extremely powerful and unusual. And it is indeed a landmark in terms of the future of Buddhism, not particularly the future of Tibetan Buddhism alone itself. But we are talking about a Buddhism in general, that the future of Buddhism depends on its furtherance to discover that Buddha had experience. And we're opening such experience to students. And we're working with this particular area, this particular work. So there is need to identify yourself with tantric experience, rather than the tantric experience being regarded as one of the things saying the same thing constantly. Of course, we could say the appetizer or the relish is same as main course, because they are all food. But if somebody's really good eater who really want to eat food, can't say that. Appetizer is just pure appetizer. The relish, pickles and chutneys, what you have around you, chili sauces, what you have, ketchups, and there are all kinds of things. They are not a food. It's just a taste of potentiality of being food. And once you have a main course is served with those, then you actually are eating food in the fullest and proper sense, that you eat chutney, pickles, chili, ketchups, soy sauce. You're actually dipping them into your plate and you actually put it in your mouth with the sense of satisfaction. That then you're eating food. But if you be served by those pure appetizers alone, that's too polite, too delicate. And you are not having a full meal, and the possibility is that at the end of the day, end of the life, end of the night, whatever, you find yourself being more hungry because you've appetized. And you find yourself breaking your icebox and refrigerator. And you'll be afraid to wake up your wife, your husband, but you're you're stealing from your own home collection. So precisely Tantra is like this, from that point of view, that you don't have to steal from your home good food, but you can actually spread all over the table, eat good food, demonstrate good food, cook properly, not being just purely being polite. And you have a chunk of that and this. It's very deliciously provided, presented, and you have all kinds of sauces to dip into, and all kinds of graves, all kinds of salad dressings, all kinds, that you are actually eating food, rather than being polite to pretend to be eating food. Hungry? In the Tantric traditions, where there is 4 types of principles which are peculiar to Tantra. It goes like this. Not ignorant by purely one-pointed reference. So in other words, that is to say that if you are enlightened by only one reference point, then you're ignorant by the rest of it. Tantra is not like that. And also, numerous methods is provided. Numerous skillful means is provided. That's the second topic, second category. And third category is, although having provided numerous methods and means to develop, that all those methods and means are not too difficult for you to practice. It's an easy way. Natural rather than easy in terms of laziness, but natural process. And the fourth one is, it is definitely aimed towards those who are sharp, personally, experientially, spiritually, domestically, have some kind of sharpness. That you are sharp in the sense that you have this sense of openness is personal experience, so therefore it is very sharp. That person will be sharp, for instance, that if person has been invited to put a piece of meat in his mouth, and automatically the sharpness of the person's intelligence would chew them, rather than just swallow them or throw them out. As long as you sit on your toilet seat, that means that you're going to perform your duty and wipe your bottom. That's a natural thing. That's like sharpness in a sense of organic level rather than sharp as being walking encyclopedia. So those four types of principles are the particular qualifications of Tantric practitioners, and Tantra is being extraordinarily special. And extremely very real and personal. Because of such experience, because of such real personal experience that happens when we begin to experience the Tantric tradition, Tantric disciplines, there are certain technical questions that we have to understand, technical details that we have to understand. And Tantra is not so much just having a sweeping statement of questions about reality and creating calmness and meditative state, just like anybody else might have done. That the Tantric experience is not more, it is more than by being purely calm and creative and contemplative, meditative. It relates with details of everyday life, individual level, your particular makeup. And according to Tantric discipline, Tantric tradition, information, that the division of the categories is been made by what's known as 5 types of Buddha families, or you can call it Buddha principles. The reason why it is known as families is it's part of your extension. So therefore, your extension, you have your daddy, you have your mommy, and those are part of your family. But those are the traditional language to be used. In this point, we could say that your mommy or your daddy is also a principle. Your motherness, your fatherness, your sisterness, your brotherness, yourness is principle, definite principle. They have different characteristics. It's been divided into five types of possibilities. That we have one of them is known as Vajra family, which is literally meaning the family of sharpness and crystallization and indestructibility. Vajra family, symbolized by the Vajra, which is superficially translated to diamond, but that's not quite accurate. Vajra in this case is certain particular celestial precious stone that cuts through any other objects of solidness. Which is more than just purely diamond. Indestructibility. So this particular type of Vajra we are talking about is a state of indestructibility. It is like a collected razor blade put together in a heap, that once you begin to trying to naively hold them, touch them, that there's all kinds of sharp edges involved, that they are cutting, penetrating, which is based on the notion of aggression at the same time in the ordinary world. That particular experience is not all that extreme, but at the same time penetrating and very personal. Such like sharp, penetrating, biting, cold winter. That each time when you expose yourself into the open air, fresh air, you get a frostbite instantly. Sharp, intellectually very sharp. It's the old intellectual traditions that belong to this particular family, that you have a traditional intellectual sharpness, logical experience as to how the certain argument is related to certain experience, whether it is true or it is false. The sense of openness is there. Sense of perspective is constantly happening. That you can view one ball of crystal ball in hundreds of perspectives, where it is placed, where it is viewed, where it has been seen, where it has been perceived, what distance you're looking at those things. And there's constant exposure to the whole thing. The sense of intellectualization, from this point, we are not purely talking in terms of walking encyclopedia, which you mentioned earlier on. But we are talking in this case is purely sharpness, directness, and aware of new kind of perspectiveness that's involved, which is presented by Vajra, which is this particular symbol carved out of stone that is developed heavenly, celestially, and looks like diamond, but still at the same time super diamond. And it has 5 prongs, which are counted in the middle one, relating with all kinds of areas of emotions: aggression, pride, passion, jealous, ignorant. That are cutting through all kinds of edges about relating with such instrument, such perspective. It's very personal, very real. Then we have the another principle, which is Ratna. Is connected with the principle that is equally personal, but it is very real in terms of expanding oneself, expansion. Enrichment, enriching one's environment, plentiful. But such plentifulness also has the problems and promises of weak unhealthiness, in the neurosis sense that such richness is neurotically being completely fat. Or being extraordinarily ostentatious, beyond the limits of one's sanity, expanding oneself constantly, opening oneself unnecessarily, indulgence to the level of insanity. And in terms of imagery, we could discuss the potentialities of swimming in dense lake of honey and butter. And a neurotic problem is that is once the butter is smeared or honey is smeared on a surface, it is very difficult to remove. You can't just remove by wiping out. You have to apply all kinds of mediums, such as like Ajax and soap, and all kinds of things to take it. It's grasping, holding on to off. And the question of richness is very extraordinary in such a principle, that you feel very rich, plentiful, and you are extending yourself to your world, personally, directly, emotionally, psychologically, even spiritually. You are extending yourself constantly to expand like a flood, like earth will shake. Sense of spreading, shaking the earth, that you create cracks and cracks after cracks when earth shakes, is the expansion of Ratna. That it's dry and rotted log that makes itself at home in a certain country ground and doesn't want to leave that ground. It would like to stay on it, possibly by improvising, growing all kinds of mushrooms over it, or plants over it, and all kinds of animals could nest in it. That kind of lazy settling down and making oneself at home, which also invites other people to take rest in that as well, in the Ratna fashion. And next one is the notion of Padma, which literally means lotus flower. When we talk about a Padma, in this case, it's the symbol of a lotus, which is grown and developed in the mud and still comes out pure and clean and virgin. Clear. But when we talk about neurosis of the Padma at this point, we are talking in terms of persons who are involved with this kind of experience are being hassleless, advertisers, being peacock, which is also a fitting symbolism of the East and Western discipline that we have, that Amitabha Buddha of Padma family sits on the peacock. That kind of seductive chauvinism takes place. That you speak gently, fantastically gentle, and seemingly very sexy and kind and magnificent and completely accommodating, that if you hurt me, that's fine, that's part of our love affair. Come towards me. Such seduction, sometimes it becomes excessive, sometimes it becomes a compassion. That depends on how we view the whole thing. The main reason seems to be the openness, and the real openness, that demonstrating to phenomena world what you have, what you are, is going to bring a sense of pleasure, a sense of promise, that whatever you experience of this particular approach, you begin to feel that there is a lot of promise, lots of home, lots of magnetization, and a lot of spontaneous hospitality is taking place. And quite different from that of the Ratna family, which is expanding into your territory, bathing in the honey and the milk, which is gooey and greasy. But in the case of Padma, that there is a sense of bathing in jasmine tea, poodle. Each time when you bathe, you feel refreshed, fantastic. You're bathing in a perfume. And it feels to be good, feels magnetized. And sweet air is fantastic. The hospitality of your host is magnificent. And you eat such good food that is provided by a host, feels delicious rather than too much filling. That you live in a world of honey and milk in a very delicate sense. Fantastic. Even your bread is scented with all kinds of delicious smell. It may be painted in pink with a delicious sight. And your ice cream is also colored by beautiful pink. Lotus-like colors that you can't wait but to eat. Fantastic. And the sweet music is happening in the background constantly. Although when there's no music, actually when you listen, but the whistling of the wind around your Padma environment is beautiful music that you might compose. Even though you are not a musician, you compose all kinds of musics. You wish you were a poet, wish you were a musician, wish you were a fantastic lover. The next, if we may change shift, is karma family, which is a different kettle of fish. Karma literally means action. In this case, we are not talking about the karmic debts and the karmic consequences that's being discussed, but the karma, in this case, we are talking about just karma simply means action. So the particular family principles you belong is action, activity, which is connected with the sense of jealousness, comparison, envy area. In the transcendental sense, that karma is that complete fulfillment of all actions without being hassled, without being pushed into neurotic level, but just a natural fulfillment, how you relate with your world. Quite simply. And the karma in this case is efficiency, whether you relate it from the point of view of transcendent level or the neurotic level, it's level of efficiency. That you feel highly irritated, extraordinarily pissed off if you see there's hair on your cup of tea. And first you think that your cup is broken, therefore there's this crack. And then there's some kind of relief that your cup is not broken, just a piece of hair on the side. But then you're pissed off again. You begin to say there's hair on your cup of tea. That you would like to make everything very efficient and very pure and absolutely clean, to the extent of that cleanliness doesn't exist. Until the cleanliness becomes hassle, that there's nothing to administrate, nothing to work on. Trying to check with every loose end corners. Extremely keen on looking into the efficiency, being very keen on efficiency, and certain sense of hang-upness happens at level of efficiency. And you meet a friend, a person who is not efficient, and you regard that as the terrible person. That person didn't have his efficiency, his trip, whatever you like to call it, is together. And completely write off from your picture of your life as being not a good person. If anybody has immaculate efficiency, and you begin to feel it is a good person to be with, there's still a sense of envy, jealousness taking place from their point of view for the efficient person against the lazy people who placed a piece of hair on my cup of tea. If your colleague is not a good person to be efficient, functional, you don't respect his or her ability to be a poet or artist or a good musician, and you would like to get rid of your friend. Only person you associate yourself with from that family level is somebody who is actually responsible, and at the same time clean cut, and very little philosophy, very little meditation, very little consciousness in terms of developing oneself, but should handle his world properly to begin with. That seems to be the basic point of karma approach, is that there is a sense of open, at the same time there's unopenness. When somebody invites you for dinner, and the whole procedure is beautifully handled, But at the end of your dinner party, one of your host or hostess had spilled water over their table. And you feel completely pissed off. I'm sorry, this is taking extreme case, but maybe that does apply to some people. That you feel such a good, gracious person, how a person could be not be aware of guest and host situation together, and why that person did that little thing, which is not needless to do so, and regarded as a conscious effort. And there is a jealousness, envy, there is a sense of resentment, which takes place constantly. In other words, the whole thing is that when you have experience of composure related with the whole world, that you're resentful that somebody else doesn't see the same way as you do, is the epitome of karma family, which would like to create a world as uniformed operation. Then the fifth one is what's called the Buddha principle. Is at this point a sense of overly exposed contemplative experience, highly meditative at the same time. Unable to express oneself. If your neighbors destroy your picket fence, with a tall hammer, and you can hear it, you can look at it, you can see it, and you saw your neighbors at work at this level, 8 o'clock in the morning, and they continue at 12 o'clock in the midday, they continue smashing your picket fence or chainsaw or whatever. You just look, and you come back. You have a little snug scene happening. Eat your breakfast and have your dinner, have your lunch. And in fact, paralyzed to talk to outsiders. At the same time, couldn't be bothered. That your dirty laundry is piled up in your corner of your room. Sometimes your dirty laundry is be used to wipe off your spilled over floor or table, push back the same pile. And towards the end of the time, the whole thing becomes unbearable with your dirty socks. You just sit there. If you're dealing with your political career, that your colleagues have suggested we should develop certain project, certain experience related with your world of your particular company, organization or whatever, that you begin to choose that particular area which needs least of effort. But you usually go to your colleague of the chief you usually go to your boss trying to save problems dealing with the subordinates. Just to directly go to the boss and trying to give a good word and opinions of what you felt about the whole thing, then you split. You don't want to deal with the details and experience of dealing with the reality from that level. Entertaining friends are being hustled. You prefer to take them to restaurants rather than cook at your home to entertain your friends. A love affair has also become problematic there. Instead of seducing partner, talking to them, making friends with them, you just pick and choose somebody who's really keen on you. You can't be bothered to be talking to them. Sometimes you feel you are sinking in the earth, the solid mud and earth level. Sometimes you feel pretty good because you are the most stable person in this universe. You suddenly take grins on yourself, you begin to smile at yourself that you are the best person because you are the only person who manages to stay stable. And sometimes you feel good. Sometimes then you feel that you are the most loneliest person in the whole universe, that you are not subject to dance, particularly. But when you be asked to be danced with anybody in the party or in the organizational, political world, you feel embarrassed, uncomfortable, and you want to stay in a little corner, hang out on the balcony, open your cans rather than cook. I think those 5 principles are very ordinary experience. Nothing divine, nothing extraordinary about them. You find such person all over your life, constantly. You come across every one of us being partially, completely one of those, constantly. And that seems to be the basic point, that in the tantric level, that those particular type of people are divided in being certain particular type of person. You have Vajra, Ratna, Padma, Karma, Buddha principles have developed experience. And every one of those people are fertile person and a workable person. They could be worked, they could be related with personally. And they have that kind of nature that involved in which that you could relate with the different types of enlightened principles at the same time. And I think unless we bring such 5 types of Buddha families, that we have no working basis, that we begin to find ourselves as alienated by Tantra. Tantra has been such an outrageous thing. At the same time, no balance on an individual level. You feel somewhat it is purely a distant aim, distant goal. So I think it is necessary for you to discuss and study and work and try to understand. If you want to read the literatures that we have developed, that is, it is possible to read. That we have, I think we have some booklet left on the pamphlet called Space Therapy, in which we discussed the different types of Buddha family. It may be available in the bookstore here. And there's some notion of that is discussed towards the end of the Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism chapter in Tantra, the discussion period, whatever. It is possible, but somehow at the same time, it is necessary for you to understand and relate with such principles before we begin to get into tantric disciplines or begin to understand what Tantra is all about. Is Tantra a fascination? Purely mystical experience. If it's a purely mystical experience, how we could derive from that experience what we heard about Tantra is all about to our ordinary everyday level at all. So there's a big gap. It seems to happen. So this particular approach might build the barrier, might close the gap. Might close the gap. It is possible. And until next discussion, next talk that we have, it would be good if you can look into this particular subject. And we should have a discussion period at this point.
Positions for therapeutic positions that you have the different members of the different families stay in an attempt to get past some of their problems. And I was wondering if you could discuss a little bit how you developed those positions and whether you've the people in the Maitreya community have worked it out yet, whether it seems to have worked for some of the patients.
Well, I think that you have your particular quality already. You can't reject them. That's the basic point of Tantra, is you can't ignore them and try to become something else. You have your given particular experience already. And you have your passion, you have your aggression, you have your jealousy, you have your ignorance, and everything happens already ordinary, in the ordinary everyday level. So you can't reject them, that's the point. And you belong to certain particular types of Buddha family. So therefore it is workable. And you don't have to try to change into something else.
The idea come about to develop these
take work on your neurosis and relate with them, experience them properly. Then you can work on it and find out the details of the whole thing and experience them and find out the details of them. And then you begin to find that there is something that you can work with rather than you should throw away as bad job, particularly. And you begin to find that is the only way you have. That only potentialities that you have is to use them as stepping stones to begin with.
Would you explain what exit family means?
I beg your pardon?
Exit families.
What?
Exit?
Exit?
Exit family.
I think that's too complicated to discuss this point. But basically it is that you have your basic nature, at the same time you have your faults or your style of operating slightly differently. That you want to be a really Ratna person who would like to fish in function yourself in a karma level, that kind of problem, or promise, whatever. It's some kind of situation. It's like Mahatma Gandhi, who trying to be a national leader of spirituality, but at the same time he tried to become a politician. That is his exit to regain independence of India, which is kind of karma exit, with this basic bhakti trip that it goes on in his Padma family.
How do you get to be a certain family?
You don't. Just find out.
I mean, where does it come from?
I don't know.
Rinpoche, I can identify that I have certain characteristics that are Padma or certain characteristics that are karma, but somehow I don't know what the point is to sort of, why are there these 5 classifications? I mean, what is the point of identifying certain of your characteristics with this family and with that family?
You mean individually?
I guess, yeah, on a very personal level. I mean, is that a good exercise, it seems like sort of an intellectual discipline to say, like I'm karma in these respects and I'm Buddha, I have a certain characteristics which belong to the Buddha family.
Well, fundamentally speaking, you have one characteristic, predominant happiness constantly, all the time.
Suppose that you identify that one predominant characteristic as, say, karma. Then, I mean, what is the point? I mean, where do you go from there?
You find out the neurosis, the potentialities at the same time. That provides you some working base. Good luck, sir.
Rinpoche, could you talk a little more about the 4 principles that you discussed before the 5 Buddha families? The second and third ones aren't really clear to me.
The second one?
Third ones, where you said that skillful means are provided, and then you said, although having provided numerous skillful means or methods, that's not clear. Are they provided for you, or do you have to sort of create the initiative to provide
Yes,
them?
Ratna, you're talking about?
I'm talking about the principles that you discussed. The first one was not being ignorant, but purely having a one-pointed reference. But
Which family are we talking about?
I'm not talking about the 5 Buddha families.
Oh, I see. You're talking about the 4 types of the principles?
Yes.
Yeah. What's the question? I'm sorry. You're talking about the 4th one?
The second and the third.
The second and third. Well, the second one is being, there's a constant methods and means, skillful means, which makes Tantra superior than anything else. And third one is because of that, it is possible that having employed, developed all kinds of skillful means and methods that you don't have any difficulties related with your tantric path, it comes very easily to you. The automaticness of it.
Are they, what sort of principles are they of do they encompass the personality of the 5 Buddha families? Do they relate
I don't
to
think
them?
so. That should be covered for the whole thing. That applies to all the basic tantra-ness, whatever you like to call it. that anybody who had experienced Tantra, they're going to experience that. And this is a discussion of Tantric Dharma, basically. Once you experience Tantric Dharma, that you find yourself not ignorant through one, and you're inspired by all. And then you have the skillful means and easiness, and that seems to be general application to all the dharmas of Tantra, rather than particularly certain special 5 Buddha principles. It's a personal thing that the naturalness of Tantra doesn't matter what particular areas of 5 Buddha principles you belong, you go through the whole thing.
The experience is sort of within the situation rather than what you bring to it.
That's right. Well, each time, if you're a Vajra person, you have all 4 of those. If you're a Padma person, you have all 4 of those. Because you're particularly associated yourself with Tantric principle, and these 4 types of awakening possibilities are always present. Once you get in Tantric path, otherwise not possible. Shall we see?
Is there a specific symbol for the Ratna family?
Why did you ask particular Ratna family?
Well, it seems that each other family has a symbol. For instance, Vajra, Dorji.
Vajra Dorji, and Ratna is a jewel, Padma is lotus, Karma is sword, Buddha is wheel.
Wheel? Wheel?
Wheel.
Thank you.
Gentleman in blue.
Rinpoche, I take it that the 5 Buddha families are situated in the 5 different parts of the mandala, like the center and then the 4 outer points. And I wanted to know which one of the Buddha families is centered in the center, and what's the significance of it?
Well, traditionally the Buddha family is always in the center. That is to say, there is a kind of coordination and a basic wisdom exists, which is the wheel principle, wheel symbol is centered. Then you have Vajra in the east, connected with the dawn, and connected with the sharp experience that exists. Connected with the morning when you wake up, you begin to see symbols of the reality when light is reflected on the world. Then you have Ratna, which is in the south, that's connected to the richness symbolized by a jewel, and also a sense of connected with it, that when the day gets older, that you begin to need refreshment, nourishment of food. And then when you have Padma, which is in the west, which is connected with the, once your days get older, that you have to also relate it with the recruiting your love affair, your lovers. You have to socialize them, making dates with your lover, call them, or find them out. If you fall in love with your antique piece, or if you fall in love with your buying clothes, it's time to go and buy them, go out and buy them as your day gets older. And then finally, the last thing is the karma is very, very strange one. That finally you captivated the whole thing. That you have everything's at your home. That nobody's going to get it. That finally you bring your merchandise back home or your girlfriend back home. That you actually got her and she is coming back with you at home. And let's close the door, let's lock it. And that seems to be the whole program of the day. Actually happens.
I'd also like to know, like what colors are situated where around the wheel?
Buddha, white, Vajra, blue, Ratna, yellow, Padma, red, Karma, green. You have to remember the beads.
So what does the Vajra master retain his predominant family?
No. Any usage of word Vajra that exists in Tantra, transcend that. Does not necessarily mean it belongs to Vajra family. That you have like such like Vajra pride, Vajra anger, and Vajra master, and all those things does not belong to this particular family necessarily. And it is just a basic indestructibility of the whole thing.
Say an enlightened being, does he have a Padma quality predominant still after like a Padma
Definitely,
enlightenment?
yeah.
Does this affect the kind of disciples that he would attract?
There's some kind of relationship between the certain type of disciples are attracted to certain type of teachers, maybe because of a certain slant towards a certain particular family. But fundamentally speaking, if the teacher is in the center of the mandala, which he should be, she should be, whatever, that person can relate with all the 5 principles.
What is the relationship between the 5 Dhyana Buddhas and the Dhyana Buddhas?
Well, Dhyana Buddha says that kind of particular term is actually an inaccurate term that is developed by Theosophists. And actually what they mean by Dhyana Buddha, literally Dhyana Buddha means meditating Buddhas, simply. But in the proper Buddhist terms, that we talk in terms of Sambhogakaya Buddhas, which are what's known as the Yidams, that certain particular personal deities that you inherited by certain particular family that you belong to.
When we place Buddha in the center of the mandala,
Hmm?
when we place Buddha in the center of the mandala, does this imply that there's only one basic kind of energy?
You could put a Padma in the center of the mandala, or Karma in the center of the mandala. And this is just a basic geography.
So the Buddha isn't more basic than the others?
Not necessarily.
I think it is with me, so that's why it would seem that
Well,
way.
I think we have to go into more details if we have time, which we don't seem to have, but there's a lot of details that we could understand about the whole thing, all kinds of subtleties. But this is how we told to be presented, basically. Ladies and gentlemen, maybe we should close this point.